All right, so time for some presidential report cards.
Oh, okay.
You know how like everyone's always talking about Biden's America? Well, today we're going to be looking at this Washington Post piece
Okay.
by Jennifer Rubin, and she kind of lays out, her take on Biden's domestic policies. Rubin kicks things off with a pretty bold claim. Says violent crime is down in 23,
Okay.
continuing a downward trend, and even murders, which we know have been a big concern,
Right.
saw a significant drop this year.
Yeah, no, the numbers do seem promising, when you first look at them.
But,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's like we need to be careful about attributing that solely to like any sort of like recent policy, right?
Yeah.
Like think about it. A lot of the groundwork for these declining crime rates, it might have been laid,
Oh, yeah.
way back, even before Biden took office.
Okay.
Like, for example, all those community policing initiatives that were implemented back in the early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
Those are actually starting to show a real impact on crime prevention now. And that's like, kind of separate from anything that's happened recently.
So it's like those crime reduction seeds were planted years ago.
Thanks.
And now we're just seeing them kind
And
of
we're seeing the results now,
sprout up. Yeah.
regardless of,
Of who's in office.
who's calling the shots at the moment.
Precisely. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that, current policies have had zero effect, but it's like we got to look at the bigger picture, right? There's a lot of factors involved.
Totally. It's like you're solving a jigsaw puzzle. You can't just focus on
Exactly.
that one piece.
It's the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Speaking of a complex picture, Rubin then kind of moves on to the economy.
Okay.
And she does not hold back the praise here.
Okay.
She paints a picture of a booming economy under Biden with, job growth, low unemployment, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But is it really all sunshine and roses?
Well, I mean, there's no denying some aspects of the economy are looking pretty good.
Yeah.
We've seen, like a significant rebound in job growth. Unemployment is down near record lows. Even like the manufacturing sector is kind of showing some signs of life again.
Interesting.
But to attribute all of that to policies, it's a bit like,
Okay.
taking credit for the sunrise.
Okay. I like that. I like that analogy.
There's bigger things at play.
So you're saying there's always these larger economic forces at play
Exactly. That
Yeah.
no one person can really control.
that go beyond any one president's control.
Right. But, I mean, that's not to say that within that context,
No.
Biden hasn't, enacted some policies that have likely contributed to some of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Like one big example is the Inflation Reduction Act.
Okay. So the Inflation Reduction Act, I mean, it's not exactly like a catchy title.
Right.
It's not something you'd like chant at a rally.
Right. That doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
But Rubin seems to think that it's a big deal, especially when it comes to clean energy.
Yeah.
So break it down for me. Like, what's the big deal with this act?
Well, what's so interesting about it is it's kind of this like fascinating intersection between, economic policy and climate action.
Okay.
Like it's not just,
Yeah.
throwing money at the problem. It's
Right.
like they're using incentives to kind of steer the economy in a greener direction.
Okay.
So we're talking, hundreds of billions of dollars
Wow.
in tax breaks and investments
Right. Yeah.
that are supposed to encourage, clean energy production, adoption, like across the board.
So it's less about kind of punishing, polluters
Yeah.
and more about like rewarding the innovators.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's really interesting.
What's that?
Like this approach has actually gotten a lot of businesses excited.
Oh, okay.
It's not just like the government pushing for this, right?
Right.
Companies are seeing that, hey, there's actually
There's money to be made.
there's money to be made in a greener economy.
Interesting.
Like you look at,
yeah.
solar panel installations, those are way up.
Okay.
Wind turbine projects are,
Yeah.
popping up everywhere.
Wow.
And even like the big car companies, right? They're all about electric vehicles now.
So it seems like this policy shift is almost like,
Yeah.
created a new playing field.
It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, for industries to kind of compete
Right,
and,
that's
and
right.
innovate.
And everybody's trying to like figure out the new rules.
So maybe this Inflation Reduction Act is a little bit sexier
Maybe just a bit.
than its name suggests.
Right.
Right? If it's like creating jobs,
Got a lot going. Yeah.
boosting the economy, tackling climate change. I mean, that's like the
Yeah.
holy trinity of policy right there.
That's the dream, right? But I mean, it's like anything else, you got to look at the long game here.
Right, right.
Like, are these changes actually gonna, make a dent in climate change, or
Perfect.
is this just a drop in the bucket?
Yeah, yeah.
And then what about, like, the economic side of things?
Right, the unintended consequences.
Exactly. It's way too early to say how this is all going to play out.
Which brings us to another issue that's always a hot topic, no matter who's in charge.
Oh, yeah.
Immigration.
Right.
It seems like, no matter who's in office, it's always
I quote the
point of contention. Yeah, so
Right.
what's Rubin's take on Biden's approach here?
Well, she actually says that, Biden's been surprisingly tough on immigration.
Oh, okay.
Like, she even says he's bypassed Congress at times to kind of push his agenda forward.
Interesting. I wouldn't have necessarily expected that.
Yeah, it's not what you usually hear, right?
Yeah. So what's she talking about specifically? What kind of actions?
So she mentions this thing called Title 42,
Okay.
which you might remember, it lets the government kind of quickly expel migrants at the border.
Right. Title 42. Yeah, that was a whole thing.
It was a big deal, and it's controversial.
Yeah.
Some people loved it, said it was the only way to control the border. Mm-hmm.
But then you have, humanitarian groups saying, hey, this isn't right.
Right.
You're denying people their chance to even ask for asylum.
So it sounds like that's an example of Biden maybe being a little more,
Making a harder line.
a little more hardline.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it really does seem like one of those things where, like, no matter what you do,
There's no winning.
someone's going to be unhappy.
Exactly. It's like you try to find a solution.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have a problem with it.
Right.
It's just the nature of the beast.
So we've covered, crime, the economy, immigration, like all these, the big issues. And it seems like, Rubin's kind of trying to paint this picture of Biden as, like, this president who's, like, exceeding expectations on domestic policy.
But like we've been saying, there's always more to this story.
Always.
So what do you think, like, ultimately, has Biden's domestic record been as successful as this article claims?
Well, I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And, I think, like most things in politics, the answer's not so simple.
Yeah.
Like, Rubin, she makes some good points, right? There have been some real achievements. But you got to remember, like, even when the numbers look good,
Right.
there's always going to be some room for interpretation.
My inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. Record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good-paying American jobs. And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. And if any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernize our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage. Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in the family farm, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative.